Hey, Golden Eagles, it's time to talk. I'm your host, Adrian Bennett de Avila, and I'm here with my co hosts, Marisa VASQUEZ, Joshua Letona, and Richard Tzul. For those of you who don't know, I'm the sports editor for the University Times and the station manager for Golden Eagle Radio. Joshua Letona is the entertainment managing editor for the University Times and the programming director for Golden Eagle Radio. We are also joined once again, by Marisa VASQUEZ, the editor in chief for the University Times, and Richard Tzul, the news managing editor for the University Times. We're recording this episode on Friday, April 10th, around 3:30 p.m. And you can see it. You can see our show when it airs on the University Times website at csulauniversitytimes.com. Once again, csulauniversitytimes.com, or by searching for Golden Eagle Radio on the Radio FX app. Time to Talk is a show that brings together Golden Eagle Radio and the University Times under one umbrella to discuss campus news and issues, campus sports, entertainment, and anything else that connects back to Cal State LA in some way. Coronavirus is still a part of all of our daily lives right now, and while things seem a little bleak, we here at the University Times and Golden Eagle Radio encourage people to stay positive and, most importantly, stay safe in these difficult times. Coronavirus has even affected the way we are doing this podcast. Normally, we'd be recording in the Golden Eagle Radio studio, but we now have to do this podcast via Zoom, so we maintain social distancing. With all of that out of the way, let's move into our first topic, the news that broke on Tuesday. Cal State LA students now have the option to request a credit or no credit grade in lieu of letter grades. This option will remain open to Cal State LA students until May 9th. Marisa and Richard, I believe you both worked on this story, so feel free, either of you, to jump in and give some. No, they didn't?
It was me and Josh.
I'm so sorry, Josh. Little snafu there. Apologies. Well, Josh, why don't you jump in then, man? What are your thoughts on the change in the grading options?
Well, I mean, this is something students have been asking for since we moved to online. I understand, with coronavirus, there's been a lot of questions about how we're going to navigate with classes. I had questions about how I was going to do some of my production classes. And giving it as an option, I think, is great for students. I don't think I'm personally going to take in any of the new grade system options, but I think for students who are really waiting for this is something like, again, I spoke to the dean of undergraduate studies, and I agree with her sentiment that students should absolutely speak to an advisor before they make that choice, because if they do take the credit no credit option, they have to keep in mind that while yes, they can pass the class, it's not going to affect their GPA in any way. So for students who already have a high GPA, this could be good news for them if they want to keep what they have now. But for students who are looking to raise it, if you take credit, no credit, there's going to be no advancement for you. That's it. Like, you're still going to have the same GPA that you will if you did for all your classes, of course. You can pick and choose, and there's a lot of ways that, withdrawals is something else that they've mentioned, which, like you mentioned, the last day to do that is on May 9th, which, again, with my interview with the dean, is actually the last day of instruction before finals. So there's a lot of leeway for students to make that choice up to the last second, which I think is great for the school to offer, and considering all that's happening right now. I know Marisa has a lot more background on sort of what students were feeling, especially with the petition and trying to get that started. So if Marisa can speak on that a bit.
Yeah, so the petition was started literally right after we went to online classes. There's a group of 4 students who started it and they basically were asking the school to outright end the semester and have every student pass all their classes. That was a very extreme version of what I think the school ended up offering. Did they do this in light of the petition? That I'm not sure of. That we cannot confirm. They have not said so. But the students who I spoke with, one of the founders, her name's Christina Zatino. She still does have some questions and concerns about the pass no pass, or the credit no credit option that's now available to students. If you don't end up passing your class, or you don't get credit for it, there's a possibility that you'd still have to take that class coming fall, within the next semester, so next fall. But for some, it may extend their stay at Cal State LA. It may extend their date of graduation to a full year, and possibly, I mean, I hope not longer, but I mean, it could end up being within the next semester or the semester after. So it's a little concerning for some. There's a lot of students that are going through a lot of stress levels right now. I know for Christina, for Miss Satino, she doesn't particularly have a single place that she stays at during her week. She is a self-pronounced couch surfer. So she goes from family to friends' houses throughout her week. And during coronavirus, like, that's already a stress for her, is that she's trying to make sure that she's not, obtaining the virus while, going throughout her regular week. So on top of that, she was also laid off by the Anna Bing School, Children's Center that's actually on our campus. So she was laid off from there. She had to, luckily she actually didn't have to apply for unemployment. She did get a internship, which is awesome, which is great for her. She's very excited about that. But like, there's all these levels of worry for her, and what she was hoping was that school wouldn't have to be one of them. But that was her situation. She is worried that for some students, graduation is going to be an issue moving forward with this new no credit option. So there's every student's situation is completely different. Every student's situation is unique to them. So I hope that the no credit option does help for some. I can't say that it's actually a saving grace for everybody.
I'm gonna hop in real quick just because I did ask some of those questions that you mentioned, Marisa, because again, we were working on the story together. Mm-hmm. And again, that's why I mentioned why I agree with the dean. Definitely for graduate students who are graduating, if they're gonna try to figure out like whether or not to take the credit, no credit, if they fail, that's why speaking to an advisor is so important right now, to figure out what your like path going forward is. I also wanted to mention real quick that if you get an F this semester, it's automatically just going to count as no credit. So that's something at least that should comfort some students who may not be doing so great this semester, knowing that like, hey, like even though you failed, it's not going to affect your GPA in any way. And on top of that, as you mentioned, if students like withdraw or fail a class, will they have to retake it? That's a question I addressed to the dean, and she said, yeah, they still would have to retake that class because it still has to fulfill that course requirement. So
right.
Obviously there's a lot you may have to consider when taking it. So definitely, like, again, I can't stress enough, like, for any listeners out there who are considering the option, take a minute to talk with your advisor, figure out what classes you need, and can you take the risk this semester, and how it's going to affect your GPA. Because I know for a lot of students, that's something they think about a lot. And like I said, credit, no credit, your GPA won't be affected. You keep traditional grading, it will. You could still get a D this semester, which will count for some credit, but I don't know how you want that to look on your, transcripts, but keep all that in mind. You have till May 9th to decide, and that's a solid window for you to kind of really figure it out. Back to you, Adrian.
I actually do have a question, Adrian. Did we get somebody who sent in a question?
Yes. Let me handle this real quick. If you're just joining us, you are listening to Time to Talk, a show about Cal State LA news and issues. We were just discussing that Cal State LA students now have the option to request they be graded on a credit, no credit basis for the spring 2020 semester. So we did get more of a comment, Marisa. For those of you who don't know, the University Times put out a poll asking our readership and our listeners for Golden Eagle Radio if anyone had any questions regarding some of the topics we've been covering today. Unfortunately, we only had one response, but we're going to read it now on air. This is from, it's less of a question and more of a comment, but from Cal State LA Truth. They commented, the school should help by explaining the considerations for these options. For example, how it can impact grad school or certain majors. We need more communication, and a live and a live town hall is way overdue by the school. Once again, those are from Cal's Daily Truth. So what do you, I'll just open up to the floor now. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Do you think there should be I assume they mean like a virtual town hall, obviously, since we can't meet in person. Uh, any thoughts on Cal's Daily Truth's comment?
Sorry, I was gonna give the floor to Richard. Richard, do you have any thoughts on it?
I feel it's better left up to you, Josh and Marisa, since you guys have done the in-depth reporting on this one.
So I think town halls are really helpful, especially now. I know a couple of other campuses have done that up to this point. I don't know if they centered it around their new grading systems, if they have any, but there have been other administrations who have been using town halls as a tool to connect with their students. I think it's a great idea. I think that'd be great. I know the UT, we've been actually thinking of doing a town hall ourselves, just so we can get a better read on our readership and how our coverage has been affecting students and if they've found it helpful. So that's our version of doing it. But for the school to do it, I would not be opposed. I think that'd be a great idea. I know a lot of students would find it very helpful. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, first I'd like to apologize for the sibling that just passed by. So for you video watchers out there, if you just noticed that, otherwise you radio listeners will be fine. As for the thoughts of the town hall, look, I mean, again, I can't stress it enough. Like, yeah, we could do that, but guys, just speak to your advisor. Like, it's going to be so much easier that way. I don't know what more you want the school to tell you. Because as far as I could tell, their email was pretty thorough in what you can and can't do, how it affects graduate students and other undergrads. So there's a lot to consider. And if you have more questions, that's something you can take to them. I know I got in contact with the dean really right away. I called the office and she picked up and called me back in 30 minutes. Because understandably everybody's kind of busy right now. So if people have questions, I don't think they should be afraid to try to contact the offices and try to figure out what they need to do. But I don't know what more a town hall, I don't know what that looks like on a Zoom meeting, especially if it's a body of 100 people listening to one person speak the whole time, which I guess in some cases it's just a class. But there's going to be so many questions, and honestly, that's what we're here for. I think again, we have we opened up the questions for everybody, and we're here to do the reporting to answer questions for you guys. Marisa, I know you said the people you interviewed had questions. I took them and I asked them to the dean. So that's kind of what we're also here to do, is make sure that all you guys are very clear on what we're doing or on what the school's doing. I just don't know if a town hall is exactly what we need.
Yeah, I want to touch on. Oh, sorry, Marisa, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I want to touch on another part of the comment. They were mentioning how it can impact grad school, and I believe we reported on that a little bit, right? What would happen for graduate students?
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, look, I'm not too familiar with grad schools, but the rules were pretty much the same to undergraduates, with the added caveat that if you got a B- or lower, it would count as no credit. Now, I imagine as a grad student, or a graduate student, getting a B or higher is kind of ideal since you're already that far into your academic career. Getting a B- or lower isn't something I think you're trying to aim for. So again, I'm sure you can speak more to your advisor about that. But outside of that, all the same rules apply. So if you need to withdraw, you have till May 9th. If you need to talk to an advisor, you have till May 9th. If you're going to change the credit, no credit, you have till May 9th.
Cool. Marisa, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, mainly for the town hall. I just think right now students probably don't feel particularly heard. And I think that's why they're asking for the town hall, so that they can at least have some sort of connection to the administration of the school, where they're able to tell them, hey, this is what we're dealing with as students, and this is what you're telling us via an email. Can we at least have a face-to-face conversation about it? And not saying that the school's doing anything wrong in particular, but I just think a good option of communication would be a town hall. Um, if they end up doing it, it's up to them. Really, they've been communicating via email, which has been great, and everything's been fairly clear on that. But just to keep up like student morale, I don't think it's a bad idea.
All right. With that, I want to move on to our next topic. So the news just kept coming this week. We also learned more about Cal State LA's graduation rates on Wednesday, including that our school ranks at the bottom of all CSUs for four-year graduation rates in 2019 for students who began as full-time freshmen. Now, I got the last one wrong, but I'm pretty sure, Richard, you took the lead on this story. So I'll open the floor up to you.
Right. So you are correct, Adrian. I am the reporter on this particular article. I should start off by saying is that I came across the data organized in a table by EdSource, which is a really fantastic news outlet that covers really education in general across the state of California. I recommend for our viewers and listeners to check it out themselves whenever they have the chance. But point is, EdSource had collected the CSU graduation rates, and by CSU graduation rates, I'm talking all 23 campuses. All that data was organized neatly in a table from the rates in 2015 to 2019, and even included the 2025 go. Now, as you just said, Adrian, which is correct, Cal State LA's four-year graduation rate for students who begin as full-time freshmen in 2019, that is, was at the bottom out of all the 23 campuses. It was at 11%. That is a raise from its 2015 rate, but 11% is a low number, especially considering that it ranks last out of the CSUs. Now, that being said, Cal State LA did have some brighter spots in its graduation rates. Not only were students who began as full-time freshmen taken into consideration, we also had, for example, the graduation rates for transfer students. Now, Cal State LA saw a really significant improvement in its two-year graduation rate for transfer students from 2015 to 2019. It went up by as much as over 14 percentage points. And for the transfer rate, it still ranks, that is the transfer rate in 2019 the graduation rate for transfer students in 2019 was still, I think, it ranks 16th overall out of the 23 CSU campuses. But if you look at from 2015 to 2019, it had the third highest improvement. So this is one area where our school has been showing progress, and it did actually exceed its 2025 goal as well. So those were the two main takeaways from the data that was examined. I do recommend for our viewers to check out the article itself, because we did include some data visualization. It's just, talking numbers is, well, at least in my case, I find it easier to comprehend numbers when I look at charts and graphs, things like that. So I really recommend for our audience members to go check it out when they get the chance. And it's not just charts that are there and still, but you can actually interact with it and move it around, set the filters like, okay, this is 2015, 2019. You'll see the bars in the graphs actually move up and down. Cal State LA's specifically Cal State LA's data is highlighted yellow, so it's easier to see. So I recommend for our viewers to check that out when they can. Adrian, I understand we also posed the question of a survey if anyone had any questions or comments to make about this story. Did we get any regarding that?
Regrettably, we did not. We just got the one Cal State LA Truth comment on the credit, no credit. But I want to take a moment now to interact with our audience a little bit and say we're trying to be sort of the voice for our student body. So if you guys have questions, please submit them when we put polls out on our Instagram and Twitter and such. Be on the lookout for those, because if you have a question, we might be able to answer it, because we have a lot of reporters and editors hard at work here at the University Times who are really trying to get that information out here to you guys. So yeah, I think, just please engage with us if you'd like, and we'll try to engage back any way we can.
Well, the audience may not have any questions. I do have a question to get Richard's thoughts on, because after you just said all those numbers and where we rank, I'm curious what your thoughts on, particularly with this year and next year, what the graduation rates might look like considering coronavirus going on right now. We've already addressed the credit change and how some students who are trying to graduate maybe trying to figure out how to navigate like their final almost month, and if they'll go through with it, and what next year's class may look like. So if you can get some thoughts on that.
Before you answer that, Richard, if you're just joining us, welcome. This is Time to Talk, the first ever Golden Eagle media podcast that brings together the University Times and Golden Eagle Radio to address campus topics and issues. I'm Adrian Bennett de Avila, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Marisa VASQUEZ, Joshua Letona, and Richard Tzul. We were just discussing some of the statistics surrounding the graduation rates at Cal State LA, and Josh just was asking Richard about the incoming classes and how the graduation rate statistics might impact them. So why don't you go ahead and pick up where we left off, Richard?
Right. So Joshua was essentially asking how COVID-19 may affect our school's graduation rate this year and even for next year, which is a really excellent question. I honestly don't have a substantial answer to that. Anything would be purely speculative. I will say that it's clearly obvious that COVID-19 has impacted the way we go to class. That is, we go to class now just by opening up our laptop or phone on Zoom. And as you just brought up, there was this bombshell story this week about the new no pass initiative. So I'm not sure, but what I can say for certain is that in some form or another, our graduation rates will be impacted. I don't see how it would not, considering the enormous ramifications COVID-19 has caused through pretty much every sector of American life. Really, I should say for life on planet Earth. So I can't say if it'll go higher, if it'll go lower. It would be purely speculative, but in one form or another, COVID-19 will no doubt affect our graduation rates, and we can only hope that our school and the CSU system and really schools across the nation are doing their best to adjust to the situation.
We may not even know the statistics of that until 2 years from now. Correct me if I'm wrong, because the statistics that you got for this particular story those are from last year, and those come only a year. They come within a year span of each other. So we won't actually know what happens within this year until next year. Is that correct?
The data organized by EdSource, that is in the table they published it was published in February of this year. And yes, that was the most recent data they presented was 2019, along with the 2025 goals. But that's a go. You don't need to really look back. But when the actual CSU system released that data, I actually do not know. I only went there to independently verify to make sure that the EdSource data was sound, which I'm sure it was, but you gotta double check. But when CSU itself releases that data, I honestly not sure. That's a good question. You can probably go straight to the source if you want to find out earlier. But in the case of EdSource, they put that together in February. That's all I can say.
It was during summer we tried to figure out what the graduation rates were from 2019, and in summer of last year we could not find those statistics, and they said that they were going to come out with them in August, and they did not come out in August. If I'm time stamping this correctly, they probably ended up coming out closer to January or February, like EdSource did, and they published that piece or the rates in February. So it tends to take a while for those numbers to even come through. So we may not, from my understanding and my history with publishing, graduation rates, we may not get those. We may not get that information until maybe a year or so from now. So it'll be interesting to see how COVID-19 does affect us, but we won't know for quite some time.
I want to apologize for butchering Josh's question. Sorry, I forgot you mentioned COVID-19. But with all that said, I want to take the last few minutes we have here to transition into our final topic. Guys, Golden Eagle Radio just celebrated its fifth anniversary. We went on the air back on April 7th at 12 p.m. 5 years ago. I've been privileged and blessed to be a small part of the station's history and its development as the station manager and also as a host earlier on in my time with Golden Eagle Radio. And yeah, I just want to say thanks to all the people who established Golden Eagle Radio and who got us through some of the tougher times and getting all of our own equipment. And yeah, really just all the alumni and current members who have made the station what it is and made having a radio station possible. I'm really excited about the future direction of the station. Time to Talk is a great example. This is our first chance to partner with our sister organization, University Times, which I'm also part of. And I think so far it's been really exciting and really cool to get something off the ground that combines both disciplines. And yeah, I just feel honored to be a part of such cool organizations, and to get to do what we do is really awesome. College radio is some of the coolest stuff there is. You get to be a little more experimental. You can put whatever, well, within reason, content that you want out there. You're not as restricted. And yeah, I just think it's been awesome. I've had a great time. It's been a lot of work too, but at the end of the day, I've had a blast so far in this, my final semester. So if you guys have any quick thoughts on the station and celebrating a 5-year anniversary or anything like that, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I'll take it from here as program director of Golden Eagle Radio. I've been with the team since last semester, making my own show, which was the Golden Eagle Talks movies. And you guys asked me to step up in February, and I've taken that position and really have become part of the team and try to, like, especially, Time to Talk is such like a perfect, like, again, not to promote ourselves, but this is a project that we have been talking about since last year. And to finally get it off the ground and bring something together between the University Times and Golden Eagle Radio, it's like the perfect combination. I'm glad we can finally do this together, and hopefully more in the future. Like this, hopefully this isn't the only thing we can do together. And you're right, Adrian, the future of Golden Eagle Radio and whoever steps up in our positions years from now, and keep producing the content that we want to give viewers. Like, I, as program director, I'm scheduling the shows, and I'm really always excited to see what our hosts have to bring in. We have some new shows and some returning shows that are on the way that are going to be coming up in the next couple weeks. So please check it out. And again, like, our partnership or our relationship with the University Times, like, it's such a perfect time for us to really be connected, especially since we could do this and provide, as we were always talking about, Adrian, like a public service to the Cal State community. Like, that's why we're doing this show. It's not because we want to be on camera. It's because we want to address issues and talk about what's going on campus and be able to tell the students and faculty and staff, whoever's really listening.
Well said, Josh. I'm totally with you. I think it's awesome that we got to do this. I mean, obviously, we wish it was under better circumstances, but, I think radio as public service is really what the core of radio is. Yes, it's entertainment and it's sports talk and all kinds of things, but at its core, it's also providing a public service. And I think it's really awesome that we've been able to partner with the university teams to hopefully provide that as best we can in these sort of challenging times. We've got a minute or so left here. If anyone has anything they want to quickly say, Marisa, Richard.
Can I, real quick, just because I myself didn't really know the history of Golden Eagle Radio. And I was talking to Monica last night. Monica's position specifically, what is it? Her position?
She's like the production coordinator. She handles our events and stuff, but all sort of facets of production.
So for those of you who don't know, Monica's fabulous. She was telling me about the history of Golden Eagle Radio, and it was really built off of, like, students really rallied together. It was an organization that was built by students, and they wanted to have experience doing radio, and that was not available to them at that time 5 years ago. They had help from our professor, Tony Cox, we all call Cox. He really supported the students to make sure that they had this place to learn the skill of radio and why it's so important to media, to broadcast. And for those who were a part of it 5 years ago, you guys are awesome. It's still here. You guys are doing awesome still. So congratulations on your 5 years. I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry we couldn't get your thoughts, Richard, because we got to go here. I want to say thanks for listening, Golden Eagles. This has been Time to Talk, the show that deals with Cal State LA campus issues. I want to thank my co-hosts, Marisa VASQUEZ, Joshua Letona, and Richard Tzul for being with me here today. For the University Times and Golden Eagle Radio, I'm Adrian Bennett de Avila. As always, stay safe, everyone.